Welcome to KGPT's Wichita's Biz That Is. I'm Tim Witsman, president of the Wichita Independent Business Association, and my guest today is an interesting one, James Franko. He is the vice president and policy director for the Kansas Policy Institute. Before we get into the Institute, let's get your journey first. Kind of take me where you started and what got you to KPI.
Okay. I was born and raised up in the Kansas City area. Went to K-State, studied business there, but was kind of drawn towards the political and policy world. Interned on Capitol Hill when I was in college and moved back to Washington, D.C. after graduating. Worked on Capitol Hill and for a couple of nonprofits. And then it was my wife and I time to come back to Kansas. And having done policy and political type work, it was natural to go to work for a think tank, that focused on the same kind of things that were important to me, limited government and free market ideas and things like this, but do so in a place where maybe there's an opportunity to have a little bit more of an effect, in a place that still is important to me, being my home state.
What do you think got you interested originally in politics and government? Any idea?
Nothing specifically. I mean, The West Wing was kind of a neat show, right, when I was growing up. That then in turn, kind of got me thinking. I'd always been interested in current events and political affairs. I didn't come from a political household. It wasn't something that we discussed around the dinner table, right? But taking a couple of economics courses at K-State and just starting to read about it and think about it. And then it was kind of on a flyer that it was, let's go see if we can get an internship in D.C. Why not, right? I'm not don't have a family to support or anything like that, so let's go try it and try it out, and then went and caught Potomac fever, as they call it.
Oh,
right?
my. And it's like malaria. It comes back on you all the time, doesn't it?
Yeah, it hasn't come back yet. We've been back in Kansas for 5 years now, so I'm fully in remission. But that was the initial impetus for it, right? I mean, it's a big, kind of exciting place, Washington, D.C. is. And that's good. But then, over time, it's, well, where can I have the most effect? Where can we actually see some of these ideas be put into practice? And D.C. is such a big place that any one individual is probably going to have a limited impact. But being from Kansas, it was natural to kind of say, it's time to move back. And being somebody who does kind of fall into that federalist limited government model, is like, we should have leadership in the states anyway, so let's see if we can't go back and work on things in my home state.
Yeah, you said two interesting things to me. One was the economics courses. That filled in a lot to me. I was interested in government and politics from really young, but there were things that never quite made sense until I took some economic history courses and went, oh, that's what's going on. Corn problem, weather. I see.
Right.
And the other was my second daughter interned in D.C. And I'm sorry, she turned out to be an attorney.
No, I never went down that path. As bad as it was living in D.C. for a few years, right? I never actually.
You didn't get that bug.
No, but I mean, I think the economics courses were nice, as pursuing that minor, because the business courses, for marketing and finance and whatnot, give you a firm-based perspective on
Correct.
things. But even taking a microeconomics course, it still forces you to step back a little bit and look at larger types of problems and trends,
Right.
rather than just what does a balance sheet look like or putting together a marketing plan or something like that. So that kind of lends itself to a slightly bigger perspective that I think then inevitably starts you thinking about the institutions and the cultures and things that allow for businesses to succeed or not to succeed.
And I don't think you can look just at politics without bringing the economic in. It's not possible. I always believed it was a political economy was what you had to look at.
Right, you would certainly hope not. You would certainly hope that our elected officials and our policymakers are considering economics and how they, structure their decisions. And
Oh, now you're out in Neverland.
yeah,
Okay.
I know. I'm still cynical, but I've got, a little bit of Pollyanna left in me, right? So you hope that they're looking at those things, even if it's from differing perspectives, but at least
Right.
then you can have an economic discussion, knowing full well that the conclusions will ultimately be reached via a political process. You can at least approach the problem hopefully from kind of an economic perspective leading up to it, even though the political process is at best messy.
That's probably as polite a term as we'll use on this television show. Thank you.
Right, yeah.
Okay, so you get to KPI, and did you approach them, or were they looking for people?
It was kind of a mutually beneficial thing. Some mutual friends kind of put us in touch. I was working for a small think tank in their DC office, and let it be known to different Kansas connections that it was time for my wife and I, who's also from Kansas, to move back, back home. Just at the time that there was an opening with a think tank that was kind of emerging from startup mode, so it was a nice opportunity to get in.
Was that here in Wichita?
Here in Wichita,
okay.
Yeah. And since then, we've opened an office up in the Kansas City area as well, as a statewide organization. Right, it makes sense to have an office and a presence in the biggest city in Wichita,
right.
Or excuse me, in the state in Wichita, but then secondly, the biggest metropolitan area, which is kind of the Kansas City area, right? So we've since opened, but I've only lived in Wichita since working for KPI.
Okay, I'll have to make this answer a little short, but tell me why KPI was formed. What was the purpose?
We were founded in 1996 by a group of people who had been involved with founding the Cato Institute at the national level. And they wanted to see some of those same ideas about promoting liberty and free market ideas at the state level as well.
Okay, very good. We're going to take a break right now, and we'll be right back with more of Wichita's Biz That Is with James Franko.